that, Mr. Tyro, and it's time for our conversation to get to know more about what the Belize Solid Waste Management Authority is about and your upcoming projects that you have for Placencia and Caulker. Before we get into that, though, let's do a quick check-in. How are you feeling this Wednesday?
I'm feeling good. I feel a little bit jealous. I came here, I saw you guys eating tacos, I believe, or something.
No, it was Johnny.
It was not tacos.
Oh,
so you
it's
didn't
Johnny
even
Cake.
get obviously, the jealous are never real. The jealous are not real because they didn't even get the food correct. Tacos and Johnny Cake, two different things.
I made an assumption. I'm like, they're eating tacos on set.
I feel like you never checked
your
your research.
It's the first time I've seen it coming on a set. I'm like, they actually, like, they have at least snack on the set. Like, wow.
Get the energy.
Man's gotta eat one thing here on this set. We want eat.
We gotta
nothing else. Huh? We want drink. We want eat. We want have a jolly good time. So this is your first time coming on?
Yes.
So your third time, we will have a Johnny Cake for you. Yeah?
Third time?
Third, yeah.
All right.
You have to dance for it. You have to work for your wine and life.
Oh, I'm a dancer. I could do that right now for you.
Wow. Okay. You still have the Easter vibes, right?
I still have the Easter vibes. Still chilling, still kicking it.
I love it. I love it.
While people were resting, we were working.
Okay.
Garbage never done.
That is
It
true.
continues to generate.
That is
so
That is true.
it's continuous. So when your guys are sleeping and having a good time, we have to be thinking about just ensuring that disposal practices is on par when it comes to what we do at the Belize Solid Waste Management Authority.
Sleep waste management and everything too.
Sleep it, dream it, do it, everything waste management.
Love it. So for our younger viewers and just in general people to just get the general idea of what it is, could you tell us a little bit about the Belize Solid Waste Management Authority? What do they do exactly? You know, where they're located, processes, everything.
All right. Well, the Belize Solid Waste Management Authority is under the Ministry of Natural Resources and Petroleum Mining. The authority, we're in charge of safe transfer and disposal of waste that we receive at our transfer stations. Now, your viewers might be thinking, what is a transfer station? And I'm going to get into that. We had what we call the Belize Solid Waste Management Project 1 with funding from the IDB.
Okay.
Through that project, we were able to establish 4 transfer stations, and with some additional savings, we had 5 transfer stations. Those transfer stations, they're located in San Pedro, Caulker, Belize City, San Ignacio, and Burrell Boom. So we have 5 functional transfer stations that is in operation. Now, apart from that, we have a regional sanitary landfill, which is located at mile 24. So for example, waste that is generated within Belize City, so we have Belize Waste Control, for example, they collect on behalf of the Belize City Council. The waste that is generated here in the city and surrounding areas that is taken to the Belize City transfer station.
Right.
When it reaches at the transfer station, it's basically, it's a point from the community to the transfer station, then to the regional sanitary landfill. But when the waste reaches at the transfer station, we have what we call the recyclers. These are people who actually recover the recyclable fraction of the waste that we generate in the city.
Okay.
When that is extracted, they are given about maybe 20 minutes to sort through the commingled waste that we have. But when they go into the transfer station, they're protected, so they have on their specific PPEs, their gloves, their masks, their boots. We don't pay them. So what they are basically are entrepreneurs. We give them access, but we don't pay them. So whatever they recover, that's their income. So it's hard work, but it's actually in principle the work that they do to earn a living. So there's nothing wrong with that, but we just facilitate the process for them. So we also provide bathrooms and lunch area. We also do trainings for them, Red Cross, occupational health and safety, explosive trainings, and they even get vaccinated through the Ministry of Health. So we facilitate all of that for them. When it comes to the residual waste, or the waste that you're not going to do anything with, then that is transferred now to the regional sanitary landfill for final disposal. So that's the final disposal site for waste that comes from San Ignacio, Caye, Burrell Boom, Belize City, Caulker, and San Pedro.
Okay.
When the waste reaches at the regional sanitary landfill now, we have what we call a scale house. And we have a person that operates what we call a weigh bridge. So every time a truck comes in with waste, there's data collected. It goes into the landfill. At the landfill now, what we do, and for those persons who might not understand what is a landfill, it's a regional sanitary landfill, and it's different from a dump site. A sanitary landfill We have the various components for safety for the environment. So at the bottom of the landfill, we have what we call HDP liners to the bottom. What that does, when you have the polluted liquid that comes from the waste that drains down, it doesn't go into
the earth.
It doesn't seep into the earth. So that's the layer of protection. That in itself, the polluted liquid that comes from the waste, it goes through a process where we don't necessarily waste that. Like, it doesn't just stay there. It's actually extracted. We have some submersible pumps to the bottom, and it pumps that liquid over to what we call a leachate collection system. So all of that goes through a process of treatment before it's released into the environment. When it comes to the waste now, we do covering. So it's covered with clay. So if you have a hard wind that comes up, you have different rodents, they don't have access to the waste. So
Okay.
all of that is sanitary because it's supposed to be clean. So prior to this project, Project 1, it was dump site, it was chaos, especially when it comes to these time of these fires and all of those things are non-existent now. I've been at SOMA from 2012. So to see the transition, and in terms of when you go from Belize City going on up, you don't have no stench coming up. You don't see the vultures no more. You start to see people building around that area now because then the aesthetics have been improved. So we have been moving away from dump sites to more having a proper transfer stations operating, and the disposal practice have enhanced. So that's when I talk about this, it's always a time for us to celebrate.
Definitely.
Because we're no longer stuck into that just dumping. We think about how we could be able to sustain a better practice when it comes to disposal practice. Now with the Belize Solid Waste Management Project 2, we have...
We're talking about today?
No.
No?
We're not get there yet.
We're not getting there yet.
I am like, okay.
Project 2, we have more transfer stations that have been built. So we have a transfer station in all of the municipalities.
Okay.
So now we have transfer station in Corozal, Orange Walk, Belmopan, Dangriga, Placencia, and Punta Gorda.
Nice.
But those transfer stations are built differently, right? It's a pity that I came here and I never brought you guys a video. But
You bring me pictures, man.
I have to come again.
I just want to say this is why you don't deserve that Jenny cake.
No, that's the reason why he's gonna come again.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
We'll wait on
Okay.
it then.
These transfer stations, they're built with 2 floors. So the first floor is to be able to recover the recyclable fraction of the waste. On the first floor, we'll directly be tipping the waste into a transfer trailer below. So I'm speaking about it, but it would have best that I brought some pictures and everything. But eventually, when you guys get me back on here,
Good imagination going on. Picture it.
you guys could see more of how it's going to operate. Now, it brings me now to this pilot project that we're doing. Through the Inter-American Development Bank, with funding from the Japan Quality Infrastructure Initiative, the TC came about to ensure now that we're able to have a process of how we're going to facilitate creating a national source separation policy. So the TC now focuses on, in terms of source separation, recovery, reuse, and recycling. So therefore, this pilot project, when it's completed, it will be able to facilitate what we want to achieve the long term, which is a national source separation policy. So coming here this morning and speaking about it is to get people involved and thinking about what can be done to be able, for us to be able, to recover the materials that we don't place value on.
Okay.
So this morning you spoke to me about explaining
What
source
source
separation
separation
is and resource recovery.
Yeah.
So
Before we
source
get to that,
separation.
I am curious to know how much of the waste that we produce is recyclable material.
That's good. It could almost be, I won't say everything, but most. So for example, I could tell you what we generate in the city is around about probably 59 to about 65 tons per day. What we receive at the transfer station.
This is city.
Just within Belize City.
Okay.
The other places, it's less, but it's Belize City, it's the hub. It generates the most. Now, remember, we collect commingled waste at the transfer station. When the recyclers open that bag and they extract the recyclable fraction of the waste, it's about 2% of the total 59 tons per day.
Wow.
So you could see now, if we would have had a system where the waste is separated at your household and collected on another day, then that 2% goes up to about 30%. Now, what do you do if you are able to recover all of this recyclable material? Now, in Belize, we don't necessarily practice reprocessing those materials, but what happens is that we have buyers who would buy from a small person. Like if you come and you have certain materials, I'll buy from you and then
Right.
I'll sell it to someone outside of the country.
Yeah, I've seen some people would buy like plastic bottles. They would buy like copper wires, some metal stuff.
Yes.
So things like that, right? So that's
Yes.
okay.
Yes, and that's the thing about it. So what the pilot project involves, we have Placencia and we have Caulker, which is the two places that we're executing this pilot project. So the process is going to be that we have our campaigners. So the households that will participate have a little sign. So
Also,
you
only
know how-
specific households are going to
only,
participate too
yes,
as well?
only specific households
Okay.
and business will
I would want
participate
to
in the
have my
pilot.
house with a sign.
Right? So it's a sign that will say that, you know, we are a part of this project and this is what we're doing within our home. And let me kind of tell you about another aspect of waste management. We have something called, you have to look at waste generation, which is something that people don't necessarily look at. And if you're studying waste generation, you'll take, for example, you're here at Channel 7 5 days a week. And you'll basically take about 2 to 3 bins and you look at what you generate here over that time period of 5 days. So if you have maybe food scraps, you put it in one bin. You have other materials that you could be recycled, like certain PET bottles in one bin. And if you so happens to want to recycle paper, you put that in another bin. And all you do is to calculate how much you generate per day times 5, and then you could times that by 52 weeks within the year, and you could say, boy,
Yeah.
this is the
so,
amount.
So people call it measuring your carbon footprint.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Something that we don't necessarily do, but in actuality, that's the way that we should go, so that we could be able to know exactly what we are reducing on. So through this pilot project, is something that we're doing that is quite simple, but it's very significant. So for example, within that household, that's the process where we're going to give you the bag. We have a clear bag. You're going to recover the materials in there. So when you go to the store, the first thing I would expect that you think about, how can I reduce the waste that I'm actually generating, because we are generating waste every day.
Yeah.
You bring your groceries at home. You use what you use, whether you're buying beans or lala milk or something in a can, whatever. You take what you have generated and you're going to place it in that bag. So you're going to wash it out. If you can, you take off the labels. You put it in the bag. And at the end of the week, you have it separated from your residual waste, meaning the garbage that you're not going to do anything else with, but to take it away from your house. We want to recover the recyclable fraction of the waste. So when that is placed, we have someone who will now come and take that material. We'll have someone else do the sorting of that material, and then afterwards that will be sold to buyers. But one of the things about it is actually gaining the experience from it. So the people who are participating, they could actually do it. They could actually be advocates for us, and they could say, it's not necessarily intense.
Yeah.
It's just for us, it's for the
Just be
person.
mindful about it.
Yes, it's to be disciplined so that when it comes to rolling out a national separation program, we have data to prove that this is effective in doing something like this. And sometimes you would say common sense will tell you, man, this is the way to go. We will talk about it and say, oh, it's the way to go. But when it's time to put it in, boy, I don't want
Yeah.
it.
I think we have a culture of
So,
like getting away from change. Like we don't like change, and just the idea. And I know when I was in Canada, they have the different separation bins. Like, and I loved how they had like a label that showed you exactly what's supposed to go into that bin and so forth. So now my question is, when it comes to the separation, are these people that are going to be picked for the pilot, the entrepreneurs, the households, do they get a training ahead of time so they can know exactly how to look out for things properly, like what to do? Or is it just
Yes.
like off the top, like you have figured this out?
yes, we have created pamphlets.
Okay.
And we have our campaigners who will be on the ground, who will actually teach the process of how we want them to actually do the process and the times that we will come to actually collect or to recover the recyclable fraction of what they generate in their household, in their house. So one of the things that we want people, because even though the pilot project focuses on Placencia and Caulker, our target areas is not just for Caulker and Placencia, it's to let everyone be aware of what is taking place and eventually the possibility of what could come. And you don't want to force something on people. We want to actually show you that, this is the way for us to go. And also, when we talk about waste generation and we talk about waste recovery, we want to also put a placement on the value of those materials. So what that does, it combats littering. Everywhere you go, you find pieces of trash all over the place. One of the reasons for that is that there's not a value on those materials. So people will just throw it. So for example, if there's a value say for example, like a simple Gatorade bottle, you wouldn't just throw that away. You could just take that and say, I could go and deposit this and I could get 10 cents.
Yeah, it's like the mentality with the pints from the sodas.
Yes,
you know?
that was used to be a big thing where people just collected, even in
is.
school.
Even
I
at
remember
school, yes.
we had the big project, and I swear, I tell my mom, make we buy soda and these different, because you want to get a plastic bottle, you want to get a pints and stuff, because you just want to be the one to have the most. But I think initiatives like that were super fun because it taught you how to recycle, but it also taught you the value of recycling financially too as well. Because people, that one thing for the environment, but also financially, you can get some money from it too as well.
And it's good that you said that because the most important value that I always speak about proper disposal practices throughout the years is that you have to see how important your role is when it comes to your environment. Because it's upon you, your personal responsibility to keep the environment clean. You don't keep it clean, you attract rodents, you attract stench. The aesthetics is terrible.
Yeah.
So it's a thing that you have to coincide with your health as well. I don't think you want to wake up in the morning with John Roach right beside you,
It's a hard no for me, man.
Yeah.
It's a hard no
Talk
for
about
me.
malaria, talk about
Exactly.
all those other
it
things.
makes you more susceptible for diseases as well. It's just a hot mess where I think people, and you've passed by people's houses and everything, and you could be like, oh, they're not being as clean as they're supposed to be. So I think it makes people a little bit more conscious of how you operate your environment. How do you make it conducive to your well-being, to other people around, to your environment, the community? I think it kind of has a call of attention for that too as well.
And that's why cleanup campaigns are good. Going on to what we want to do in terms of the launching of the TC, we're doing it April the 22nd, which is this Friday on Earth Day in Placencia and Caulker.
Okay.
So the reason why we're doing a small beach cleanup, and it's very symbolic of what we have been able to accomplish over the past 10 years. Even though we have had these magnificent infrastructures in waste management, we still need the buy-in and the collaboration of people within this new system. I'll give you an example. When the transfer station just went up and started to operate, we had issues in Belize City with people not going to the transfer station and they would just dump along the road. So we had to collaborate with, of course, the Belize City Council and Ministry of Health and other persons like that, so that we could be able to get people away from doing that, because now we have a transfer station, and all that needed to take place is that you have to now tip the waste between 8 to 5 and 8 to 1 on Saturdays. So you don't have to be dumping or doing illegal stuff anymore, because we have a different
We got a
process.
place,
Yeah.
man. We got a place to go
place
transfer
now.
the team.
Tyrone, this pilot project, specifically in Caulker and Placencia, gives people the opportunity to start engaging in the behavior change for us to being able to have a healthy environment and a healthy community on its own. However, I'm thinking that there's viewers from other places that are, paying attention to the conversation we're having now, and maybe you might want to think, how can I just jump ahead and start this ball rolling while these projects are going out there? Give us some guidance into how this source separation can be done at home.
It's good that you have made mention of it, because what we have found throughout the years that most people who come from different countries that actually practice source separation, they do the same when they're in Belize. The only problem is that at the end of the day, when the materials are collected, it goes right back into one compactor truck and everything is mixed up. So if those persons are able to recover those materials and take it to maybe a buyer. So for example, if you have like the PET bottles from the Bowen and Bowen company, you could actually go to them and you could redeem based on what you take there. Once your plastics, it has to be intact, including the glass ones as well. The other materials, if you could find a buyer for those, perfect. But if it's just something that you're doing within your community, and you could actually engage maybe 5 households or 10 households and just recover those materials and redeem them, that's what I always tell people to do. I think sometimes we would come across persons who would want these source operation practices happen right away, but it cannot be, because all of those things takes infrastructure. And when it comes to waste disposal, people don't necessarily see the value in waste disposal. So as a part,
it's just waste.
It's
right?
just waste. So
It's
apart from
garbage,
those,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah, it's just garbage. But the thing about it, I always tell people, especially being a communication officer, I'm also an advocate. And I always tell people, especially in the rural communities, various villages, if you don't have a waste collection service, we continue to face issues with those issues of hotspots in different areas. And you tend to find that even though persons generate X amount of waste in their household, they still don't want to pay a fee for it to be properly collected. Therefore, we have hotspot issue. So you have to think about it in a very simple manner. Say, for example, maybe you come here, and say, for example, hypothetically, that the council cannot pay Belize waste control, and now we have 3 months, nobody can take your waste to the transfer station. The minute you think about you have to take everybody's waste in Channel 7 to the transfer station, you have to think about how much it's going to cost you to do it. Fuel is very expensive. Then you have to think about your own effort that you have to take out those bags and put it in there
It's
and
not
what
going to
have
be pleasant.
you. So there's always that hidden cost. So people think that waste management is literally for free, and it's not. So everything that moves, you know that there's monies that has to be pushed
Definitely.
behind it. So being a part of this project, what gives me a great deal of gratitude is that it's the transformation of the mind. And this pilot project, this is what it's going to do. It's going to send a message that we have to transfer or enhance the way how we look at what we generate as a people. And the first thing that we want to keep focus on is on waste reduction. So when you actually sort out the materials at your home, you can start to calculate and say, you know what, maybe I never need to buy all of this.
Definitely.
Maybe this is one that's so important
I
to
think,
buy.
like you said, with these kind of projects, you have that tendency to reevaluate your actions of what you're doing, how you're doing it. And also, you could be an advocate too as well, telling your neighbor, hey, you know, if you do this, you do that, yourself, because you're learning. I think knowledge is always power, and people don't understand how important it is to just understand things a little bit better. Even just like the small sentence of you explaining the process of how the transfer system, where it is, like what happens. People don't know that, and it's actually good know-how. So in the case it ever pops up in a conversation, honey bun, you got information already to tell somebody, to educate them. And so we think that these nuggets of information might, do I really need to know? Yes, you do. Knowing a little bit about everything helps us to be rounded people. But definitely it's a conversation we want to have more on just the idea of separation and being able to calculate. I think we could have a next segment that talks about that and gives,
footprint,
like
carbon
does that.
footprint.
And
That'd be
we could
cool.
bring, you might have to bring with some garbage, or we could use some Channel 7
Yes,
garbage.
man,
We don't know how to do it.
I have many things I could bring for you guys.
And so we
go.
could do that. We could have a separation thing where we could like
we done this,
step by
we done this
step
sort of your
guide.
dates, so you know
So
you're trying to
we see-
cake next
see-
and your dance
That'll be the
next.
second segment, all right? Okay, so that's the next one where we're gonna
There
do
you go,
definitely
Tyrone.
separation and seeing also calculation too, because
Yeah.
I think it's not just for young people, it's for everybody that we're gonna
Yes,
able
definitely,
to practice in our household. I really want to implore teachers out there to start this a little bit again, start the trend. We're going back to school, so let's start these projects that we understand people, let people be more conscious and mindful of their actions, especially when it comes to waste control. Nothing about garbage, it's waste control. Let's see how we can work with this and manage it. But thank you so much for being here. You don't have a second invitation, so
Thank
you
you,
can't
Sarah.
say,
Yes,
you don't
yes.
have, it'll work your way if you get this Johnny cake, you know, it'll work your way if
I
you
could
get it.
clear my schedule. I could be here for next week.
Chantal, don't care, we'll work it out already.
Chantal, he's ready.
So Chantal, don't say, but with that, guys, we're looking forward to the next time. Guys, for everybody out there, because there have been people saying that, this is by time we're supposed to deal with the waste management. And so we're going to be talking a little bit more on the next time when he's back, showing, how to separate these things, how to calculate these things, getting those information that we don't necessarily know, but we see on TV or whatever it is, we're going to learn it too as well. So with that, we thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
And we'll see you back again.
Yes, definitely.
Johnny Hake at the third time. Just remember, third, Johnny Hake and dancing. All right.
I will definitely find a reason to be here the third time. Yes.
You'll find a reason and we'll definitely
I love
will
it.
accommodate it. But with that, we must accommodate a commercial break.